Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the May committee meeting of the County Legislature. We'll begin our first committee meeting of the evening, the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to be chaired by Legislator Hughes.
Call to order tonight the Committee on Economic Development and Planning. We have two items to bring to you tonight for your consideration and approval. Both would require a motion to move them to the agenda. The first is EDP number 5. This is a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the Schenectady County Capital Resource Corporation. Ray Gillen is here, and in a moment I'm going to ask Ray to explain a little bit about how the CRC works. I just want to clarify one thing, because some of the members received some correspondence, email correspondence, that this involved county money going to Union College for renovation, and that is not the fact. And Ray will explain that all we're really doing is opening the door to the municipal bond market for Union. And there's actually a fee that comes back to the Capital Resource Corporation. So it's a win-win all the way around, and creates a number of good paying construction jobs while the work is underway. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ray.
Thank you, Legislator Hughes. The CRC, the Capital Resource Corp, is part of our County Unified Economic Development Team. The CRC does something very simple but important. It helps nonprofits go to the capital markets to issue bonds for large capital projects. I think of the Clarkson Grad School. You probably passed on the way here tonight. Previous projects at Ellis, at Baptist Retirement, the new science building at Union College, which is a $100 million project. These are the types of activities that the CRC has been involved in the past. These large capital projects help these organizations, which are big employers in our community. They also create jobs and economic development activity associated with the capital project, either the renovations or the new constructions. The bonds are non-recourse to the county and to the CRC. There's absolutely no financial outflow from the county or the CRC to the recipient, nor is there any liability or recourse on the bonds. They're the sole liability of the bond issuer, in this case, Union College. What Union is going to use this funding for, it's about $60 million, is to refinance some existing debt at favorable, while interest rates are still favorable, and also do upgrades to about 20 buildings on campus, which is significant. The project has been approved by the CRC board, which is chaired by Legislator Hughes. We thank the board for coming in, Legislator Gatta, County Attorney Chris Gardner, all members. We held a public hearing today, and we had no one came to speak either for or against the proposal. So we come to you tonight asking you to approve these bonds, this bond issuance at your meeting next week. We hope to close on this transaction by the end of May. As Legislator Hughes said, the CRC earns a fee from this transaction. So we actually benefit and are able to use that funding to help support other economic development activities in the county. So it's a help to Union. It provides a large capital project which creates jobs, and it creates a fee for the county. Happy to answer any questions.
Members have questions?
Just one question.
Legislator Rizzo.
When the Union College goes to market, do we have to facilitate any of the activity on their behalf, or they're responsible for bringing the issuance to and from the market?
Yeah, they've hired Goldman Sachs to do the transaction. Our benefit, our goal is we work quickly. You know, we put this together quickly. We had a meeting. We're hoping to close this transaction by the end of May while interest rates are still favorable. Other vehicles that they had to go to the bond market wouldn't go as quickly as we can go.
Thank you. The dormitory authority comes to mind as one way that the college could have gone, but the dormitory authority is not as nimble and not as nimble as we are.
Not as
As
quick.
we turn this transaction, and it will be less than 2 months. It's-
It is a percentage. We're estimating the fee about a little over $200,000 right now.
Legislator Roseborough.
This is just really a comment. Union College does employ a lot of folks from the county for sure, but they're also just so well regarded and a great school. It's a real gem to have. And I love that we are being such good partners in making sure that they're sustainable and meeting their vision for their campus. So thank you for
That's a
doing all
good
that
point.
work.
We should have made that point as well. I'm too transactional about the fee and the money, but they're a great institution, great employer in the community, been here forever, and it's a good thing to help them out when we can. Well said.
Any other questions? I have a motion. Can I have a second? Second from Legislator Pratt, motion from Legislator McDonald. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried and moved to the floor. EDP number 6 is a resolution to authorize the county manager to enter into a license agreement with Legislature Center LLC. And this is an agreement, I believe, concerning parking.
Yes. We appreciate the assistance of Chris Gardner and Frank Salamone in putting together this licensing agreement. We'd ask for your approval. It's almost identical to previous license agreements we did when HBO was at Armory Studios, when Showtime was at Armory Studios. Now we have the Van Gogh immersive experience coming to Armory Studios. It's going to bring a lot of people to town. It's very exciting. There are 5 touring Van Gogh shows. This is by far the biggest and the best regarded show. They hope to start set up this week and begin the exhibition in late May, early June. This provides access to 2 parking lots, one on South Church, one on South Ferry. It's a 4-month agreement with the ability to extend if the exhibition, the run of the exhibition extends. So we work very closely with Todd Garofano. I cannot say enough of good things about Todd. He's doing a fantastic job, and team at Discover Schenectady, Kathy Gatta, Legislator Gatta, thank you. He's a joy to work with. We chased this very hard. We heard they were looking at the Albany market, and Metroplex and myself, the Discover Schenectady team, and Ray and Jeff Legier, and with terrific support from the city and the county, we're able to bring Van Gogh to Schenectady, continues our efforts to bring a lot of economic development activity to Lower State Street. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Just a comment. I've heard great things about the exhibit already through various social media. So I think it's awesome that we continue to do this and bring tourism and economic development and show what Schenectady is really made of. So I'm proud of that we are continuing to do that. So thank you.
So I will just say that your motion and your second and your yes vote on this will ensure that all those people that are coming from everywhere to see the Van Gogh immersive experience will have a place to park.
And it's our understanding that they're going to be here until January.
Yeah,
That,
they have a contract that allows them access to the Armory for that long. It depends on the ebb and flow of attendance and other things, but they're expecting a good turnout. They do book time so that the show is never overrun. So you get a block of time to see the exhibit. So we're confident in our ability to handle it. The Armory is just the ideal setting. It's
Yeah.
just a very interesting building, free span, no columns, 50-foot ceilings, 30,000 square feet. It's all the reasons it works for a movie studio. It works well for exhibits. And we continue to look to book movie productions with Discover Schenectady and Film Schenectady, in 2023.
And if you've never been in that structure, I strongly recommend it because for all the reasons it works well as a movie studio, it made a fantastic drill hall when the garden was
That's
there.
right.
So
Yeah, that's
it
right.
is huge.
I will move this to the floor.
Thank you.
Can I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Move to the agenda. Committee on Economic Development and Planning has come to a close. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ray. Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting to be chaired by Legislator Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll call the order of the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting. I have one item tonight, presentation by Jamel Muhammad of Youth Life Support Network Incorporated. Jamal's with us tonight, as with some special guests, Sheriff Dagostino, Under Sheriff Barrett, Chief Lou Brandt, and City of Schenectady Police Chief Eric Clifford to hopefully further explain or answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Constantine. Before we begin, I'd just like to thank Chief Clifford, who's been a great partner for the past 3-4 years in some of our law enforcement initiatives. He's been a great supporter of ours and us of his organization. They do a great job over there in the city of Schenectady. So thank you, Chief, for being here tonight. Jamel Muhammad's here tonight to present a little overview on our gun and gang intervention program that we've been running here in the county since 2014. So it's been established for a while. It's doing some great things, and we're looking forward to it continuing to do some great things for the county as a whole and the city in particular. So, Jamel.
Yes, good evening, and thank you all for the opportunity and the honor to be able to present to you on the program that we've been running here in Schenectady for, as Sheriff Dagostino mentioned, since 2014, which is the last 8 years now. I first do a disclaimer. I'm not big on PowerPoints and clicking, so I usually either get ahead of myself, put the slides or behind. You have a copy of it, so I think it'd be easier just to flow that way. I like to do a natural flow instead of trying to go scripted. So I ask for the apology and excuse ahead of time. With that being said, it's an honor. I'm a native as far as born and raised in Albany, New York. And I was asked in 2012, 13 actually, by a great gentleman who I was honored to meet, Wes Holloway, who asked me based on things that I was doing in Albany. He came and spoke to my youth build program when I was case manager. And he asked thereafter if I would talk to some people in Schenectady about the violence over there and things that we can do. And the reason he approached me, because in 2010 or 9, when at the time Senator Malcolm Smith brought the Chicago ceasefire to Albany or to New York State, 13 sites were set up and Albany was one of them. I was this street outreach supervisor who orchestrated building that up and running it for 3 years. And it was very successful at the time. Not to pat myself on the back, but the data and the statistics point to it. From there, Wes saw the decrease in Albany and asked about Schenectady. And I took him up on the offer, just trusting, this great gentleman and not knowing I was putting myself in the lion's den. And I say that because I found out the night before that I was going to be coming in to meet with the 2 top cops of the county, Sheriff Dagostino and at the time Chief Chairs. And that being said, I was nervous because our program is very unorthodox in that, we hire those who are very familiar with the street culture. They come out of the street culture. They know the street moves. They pretty much know what's happening in real time, what happened, why it happened. And I knew that this would be difficult to sell to the police department, knowing that the biggest part of the success is the integrity and credibility, the ability to protect our people that we work with, to not have to, lose credibility of the program as being a quote unquote investigative tool or extension of law enforcement. So now being in a peculiar predicament to have to share that program with both of the top cops, I knew it wouldn't happen. I was fortunate to have, as my chairman at the time, another great gentleman, Harry Corbett, who's former superintendent of the state police, the first and only African-American state police leader in New York State. So I brought him in and he had the conversation with me. And initially the idea went flat. Sheriff Dagostino was the first one to outright shoot it down. And his choice of words, I can't put public on record. But if you know Sheriff Dagostino, you can definitely use your imagination and know where that conversation went. Chief Chairs was a little more open, said he wanted to hear more. I walked away. I let the law enforcement individuals have the conversation. Wes came back to the table and said, came and got me, said, come back to the table. We sat down. And from there, Sheriff D'Agostino's position was, I'm not saying I buy into it. I'm not saying I believe in it, but because you brought this man with you that stands behind you, then I'm willing to give it a shot. And Chief Chairs echoed the same. It wasn't long thereafter that we had an incident in Schenectady that demonstrated our ability to contain, de-escalate, mediate a conflict, and control the situation with all the boys club on Craig Street at the time. Shane Bargy reached out to us and they had a situation with families conflicting. And with that, we were able to contain it, wrap it up, and he was impressed and basically said, whatever you need, and he's been the back for us as well. With that feedback, Sheriff D'Agostino came back and we had a conversation and he had his idea of, policing from law enforcement history. He had the, Philly block by block was one of his main ones where they basically identify hotspots, come in, saturate it, move the elements out, sit it there for a little while, let the community take it back, and then they identify the next hotspot. So we bumped heads a little bit and I explained to him, the problem with that. When you bring your law enforcement in, you smash, you saturate, you don't lock everybody up. So where do the ones go that don't get locked up? They end up in another neighborhood, which means now you have territory wars, you have people fighting over who's gonna get the money, you have all the rest of the things. So you went from just drug trafficking to gun violence and homicides. So with that idea, he said, okay, you got it, but what do we do? How do we address it? And I said, well, I led the SNUG program in Albany for 3 years successfully. There's some things that I like and there's some things that I didn't like. The things that I like, I think we should try and push it through. And I can explain the things I don't agree with and where they're in opposition to us. And I think if we go that route, we'll be fine. So he asked, the approach of it and what the program does, coming back here at some point in this PowerPoint. What we do, and the main thing was identifying those individuals who are at the highest risk of either being shot or shooting and being involved in the street culture. Our staff, outreach workers, are responsible for maintaining the caseload of at least 10 individuals who are at the highest risk of either shooting or getting shot. And the whole objective is to get ahead of the violence, not try to respond to it. So if we're already engaged with those individuals, which is why you get the individuals as far as employed, you bring them from the streets because they're the ones who's gonna know exactly who the gunners are. We're not waiting for a foot chase by the police department or a trigger to be pulled to say, oh, this is a person that carries a gun. We already know who's out there with the guns and we're proactive and we take, the lead on bringing them to the table and looking at what their barriers are and what their needs are to make sure that we can connect them with the resources to redirect their thinking and, the focus on things. Fast forward and I'll start bringing it to a close for the sake of time and definitely questions. We've been successful in doing that. We also have not just a matter of the proactive side, we are also responsive. When there is an incident that the trigger is pulled and we do have, whether it's just confirmed shots fired because there's shell casing or some other evidence that there's a shooting or whether there's a victim, we're notified. Most times we're notified by the community because the community, even those involved in the street culture, prefer not to have the gun violence. It's not that they're ready to walk away from crime as far as drug trafficking or anything else, but they'd rather not have the gun violence because it's, in their words terms, it's bad for business. So they call us to make sure that we're in the know of who's going and what's going on to make sure that we can, resolve the conflict to get the gun violence out the way. if we don't get a call from the community, and even if we do, we also have a great relationship and partnership with the city police department. There's a process that's set up, a protocol set up, where Chief Clifford has carried on from previous chiefs that instituted a notification process that when there's a shooting, a confirmed shooting, his give detectives automatically contact me as well. And at that point, whether it's 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning, we deploy our staff and our team out to make sure that we can see what's going on to the area of the incident, but we also respond to the hospital. We respond to the hospital because that's the hotbed of emotions. If there's going to be, the frustration, the pain, that's going to send a retaliation, that's 9 out of 10 where it's going to happen at. So we engage the hospital to the victim, but we also go to the community to find out, what we can about why the conflict happened so that we can mediate. These individuals, that's part of the street team, as I call it, also responsible for building their relationships in the community. And that's where that helps out at, where they can bring people to the table. I may not be able to stop the trigger from being pulled on the next person because I don't have a relationship with the individuals involved. But if I know the next person that does, I can call him and say, listen, your boy, your guy, your man, whatever, is involved with the situation and we need to pull it back, and they can say, listen, let me talk to him and see what's what. Now, the biggest, again, catch was this information doesn't go to the police department, the law enforcement, criminal justice, partners. And they came to understand the integrity, credibility, and protection of the program is more important than that one moment of evidence or information, because they can get the information from us to solve that one case. But what happens for the next 20 or 30 that may come behind it that we may have been able to intervene in and to resolve, that now our credibility is shot. Nobody wants to talk to us or work with us because they feel that anything they're saying is going to lead to some kind of a conviction or some kind of an arrest. So, I'll close, and of course I told you I wasn't going to click. I apologized ahead of time. But I definitely thank, all of the partners, Chief Clifford, Sheriff Dagostino, DA Carney, all for the partnership and support with the respected boundaries that are there to make sure that we can do what we do, everyone do their part, which I know has affected the numbers. And with that, I'll put a pin in it and give it to the sheriff.
Thanks, Jamel. I wasn't a big supporter of this program early on, and the reason being was it was my thought, my idea. If he knows what the hell's going on the street, why am I not knowing it if you're running this program for us? And I think Jamel put it very eloquently by saying, that'll ruin the credibility and that'll probably increase the violence if people start knowing that we're sharing information with law enforcement. So that was a hard concept for me to get my head around. And ultimately, the one that helped me with that was a former Albany chief, Chief Krokoff. And I'd spoken to him at length. And I said, Steve, I says, explain to me how it is that you sell this program to your law enforcement. He says, well, he goes, it's a tough thing. He goes, however, it was our feeling. And he said, I had to go down to our musters and say, look, he's not here to solve your crimes. All right. He's here to prevent the next one from happening by knowing what's going on. Your detectives, your street patrols, they're here to prevent and solve your crimes. So after chewing on that for a little while, given at that time the amount of violence that was going on in the city and county, we said, hey, let's give it a shot. And Jamel came very highly recommended from a man we both respect, from two men we both respect very, very highly, the former Superintendent Harry Corbett, God rest his soul, and Wes Holloway, who has been a great community leader in this county for many years. And I can tell you, I fully trust what Jamel does with his program and fully support it. And the numbers reflect the validity of our support, let's say. In 2018, you had 0 homicides in the city of Schenectady. 2019, you had 1. 2020, the year COVID outbreak came upon us, we had 4. 2021, we had 2. 1 was gun related. In 2022, we've had one. If you look back prior to 2018, you would see a very different picture painted. So I'm not going to sit here as much as I'd like to and say it all falls back to Jamel's program. That would be unfair, not realistic, but he is certainly an integral part of why the homicides are down, as well as the great job the city police department does in policing the streets of the city. So we're very, very proud to have him, and we're very pleased to continue to present this program to our county residents. Ultimately, we think it's a benefit to all that live and work here. And I think with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Jamel will be, actually.
And I just want to put one point in. We had one homicide last year that's gun-related. However, that was two Albany factions that met at Tropics. They were not Schenectady County residents. Anything that happens within the county is definitely something we don't want. But just to make the point of, the work that's being done collectively and collaboratively to contain these things. So that was a homicide on Schenectady grounds, but it was not Schenectady natives involved.
I have a question. You have, what's your area that you're covering? Is it Schenectady County, Albany County? You say you have a group in Albany as
Strictly
well?
Schenectady County at this point.
Oh.
For this particular program, I'm strictly Schenectady County.
And then the violence interrupters, outreach workers, and clinical social workers, how many people are we talking about that work?
Right now, we're stuck at a level of 3 outreach workers. The program overall costs approximately $480,000 a year to run, fully staffed. We haven't been able to get to that point since the inception. I definitely first and foremost thank the county legislature for being foremost on giving support funding to what we could get. So we're stuck there, and we're looking always at other partners. We've met with some of the business partners with some creative ideas. And we are, I'm sure that the buzz has gone around about the SNUG grant that's out from the governor's office. And we are looking at that as well. And I say we stayed away from it for some time, on one part, because of the fact that it was being mandated that we carry the SNUG name. SNUG has grown to be a very negative name in the city as far as in the streets are concerned. It may be great buzzword and headlines in newspapers, but as far as the street culture, they don't trust it, they don't like it. And I didn't want to taint and reverse the work we're doing by taking on the title of something that is not in our best interest. But we do intend on applying for the grant that's out for Schenectady. And with that, we definitely will be able to scale up to the people that we need to do even greater job.
Initially, Kathy, when we projected this program from a budget standpoint, we had projected to be at full staff, and what we wanted to accomplish, we had to be around 450,000. We weren't able to accumulate that kind of money. We've run the program on what the ledge has given us for the first few years, and the city has been kicking in the past couple of years with money. So we're up around 250. Most of the programs that are being run are 500,000 or better. So we've been able to accomplish with the skeleton crew quite a bit.
That other cities have not, with 3 times the amount that we're working with.
Right.
I just have to plug that in.
Jamal, I just want to say thank you very much. When I look at the numbers that are quoted here in this presentation, and I see a 20% increase in gun murders in 2020, I feel safer that I know that your program is running in our community. And I thank you, Sheriff Dagostino, and you, Chief Clifford, and all the law enforcement that's here today. But most of all, I thank you, Jamal, for bringing what's a very unique program to our community and supporting and facilitating what I think keeps our neighborhoods as safe as possible. with mental health being a significant impactor in our community, I know you're working hard. I know you're working hard to try to get more credible messengers and try to get the support you need. So I, for one, am very supportive. I know my colleagues are as well. I can't speak for every one of them, but we want to see this continue to be successful. And we thank you for the effort and for leaning in on our behalf.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I did have one more question. I apologize. As far as the public education goes, what's your target audience as far as education? Are you gearing it towards the high school kids? Get them.
Well, the public education component is twofold. One, to educate the community at large as far as the program existence, how it works, and the mechanics that it can be supported. The other side, yes, by all means, all grade levels. And as we're seeing now, unfortunately, individuals are younger and younger with gun possession, weapon possession. And you're talking about people that are emotionally underdeveloped and afraid. So yes, that is by all means our primary interest, to educate. And I've been invited into Mount Pleasant Middle School through the social worker, Ms. Belmar, and one of my staff have been working with Central Park Middle School as well. So yes.
Thank you, Jamel, Sheriff Dagostino, your staff, and Chief Clifford. That'll close public safety and firefighting.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Labor and Civil Service, to be chaired by Legislator Frisoni.
Good evening. I call the Committee on Labor and Civil Service to order. There are two items on the agenda tonight. The first is LCS Initiative 10, a resolution to create and eliminate certain positions at the Glendale Nursing Home. Nursing Home Administrator Todd Zipnewski is here to provide some background on this initiative.
Good evening. Glendale is requesting these changes in position to streamline the process for scheduling medical appointments and transporting residents to medical appointments. Currently, we have 3 to 4 staff members that are involved with scheduling and transporting residents for appointments. Our current setup is that we have a motor equipment operator that really just does transportation for appointments. And when they're not busy with appointments, it's a full-time position. They're doing light maintenance or housekeeping work. So the goal was really to create a position, which was a transportation aid, that would allow somebody to actually schedule the appointments for the residents and also drive those residents to the appointments, therefore taking several other people out of that process and making it much more efficient. So that's really the goal of the change.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda.
Thank you.
Our next item is LCS Initiative 11, a resolution to create and eliminate certain positions in the office of the Schenectady County District Attorney's Office. And DA Bob Carney is here to provide some background on this initiative.
Before I started, I just wanted to say a couple of words about Jamel and his program, if you'll indulge me. I'm preparing a case for trial right now that was one of the 2020 homicides. A man shot a man to death in front of Star Liquor on State Street. And those were also Albany people, one Albany person going after another. One of the things that I read just the other day in preparation for this trial was all the lead sheets, and there was one of the first lead sheets was contact Jamel Muhammad. So this is something that the police department practices, and it's helpful. It's hard to measure success when your success is crimes that don't occur. But what we do is we try to get Jamal and his people involved to try particularly to deal with the retaliatory shooting situation, which we often see, unfortunately. So if we know that there is a certain amount of tension and pressure to retaliate, that's the ideal situation to get him involved. And we'd like to think that it has been helpful. And also on the public education front, I think for 7 or 8 years, Jamal and I have done a program together with the Schenectady School District, Boys Day Out, where we've had some really fascinating conversations with middle school kids that are, it's amazing what some of those kids know and have lived through. And I've always enjoyed doing that and doing it with him. So having said that, I'm here tonight on this proposal to make some shifts in the lines in my budget occasioned by vacancies. One that we had from the beginning of the year that we had anticipated would be an entry-level person. And the other one, when Kyle Pettit left my office, Kyle was an ADA 6 at a salary of $103,000. We are proposing hiring Mike Nobles, who was an ADA with me. Chris Gardner stole him from me a couple of years ago. He was the assistant county attorney, and I'm stealing him back now because what he really wants to do is be a prosecutor and try cases, and he's a very talented trial attorney. So because he has fewer years experience, he comes in at a lower level. So that's a savings of $11,000 in that by doing that switch. The other one, which we anticipated we would have an entry-level person right out of law school, we're able to bring in somebody, a Niskuna native, who's been who's a law intern for us, and then she became an ADA in the Bronx for a year. Since she has a year's experience, we need to bring her in at an ADA 2, which costs a little bit more. So it's a $10,000 difference. So it's a net savings to the county of $1,000. But I get to bring in 2 young prosecutors with experience, which is really good at this point in time, particularly as we've lost some senior level people. So we have a lot of young people. So I can bring in people with some experience. That's a real benefit. And then the other change is we have both Lynn Chabot, who is the multidisciplinary team project coordinator at the Child Advocacy Center, is announced her retirement. Actually, she's retired now. And Lucille Chabot, her mother, was a part-time administrative assistant, and she is also retiring. And at this point, I'd like to move that position to a full-time administrative assistant, which I think I'm sure we have the funds for because it's a grant-supported thing. We always knew that was going to be a full-time position after the Lucille left in her part-time position, and that is something that we need at the CAC. We have a lot of need for clerical work, and we've had some people doing that or being asked to do that when they should be doing other roles. So having a full-time person there is going to be really valuable. At the same time, I'm working with the administration to look to what we should do to move the CAC forward. And we're looking to make that position a directorship, and we're studying the cost of that, and we will have more on that later. But so we're planning for that as we go forward. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just one question. So great hires. Looks like we're being very smart, and thank you for being a fiduciary or being smart about these hires. What about discovery? Are we able to keep up with the discovery process? I know it's kind of off topic of this, but how are you doing there? And do we need to be thinking about?
Well, we did. You guys gave us some funding at the beginning of the discovery process, and then we were fortunate to get a substantial grant to pay for all of that and more. I believe there is more money in this budget for discovery, and this time it's not being stolen from the Manhattan DA's office, special funds that they've accumulated over the years. It's something that's more in the state budget. So we hope it will be a recurring thing. I think we're doing pretty good with discovery. I'm concerned that it has lots of ramifications in criminal justice, particularly in the ability of police departments to close cases because people know that they're not likely to be protected as well as they could have under the old law. It's hard to measure that, but I see that. I see a lot of problems with that. But I think we're mostly on top of it. I'm not aware of losing cases because we weren't able to do discovery. I know the ability of our law enforcement agencies to get us stuff digitally has improved dramatically. So because we were able to computerize this whole process, it's a new world of paperless prosecution. And we are pretty much on top of it. I'm not, but my people are.
You got a great team. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Move to report.
Second.
All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda. This concludes our business. The Committee on Labor and Civil Service is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last committee meeting of the evening is the Committee on Ways and Means to be chaired by Legislator McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Committee on Ways and Means to order. Our first item is Ways and Means 3, a resolution authorizing a mortgage tax distribution of $2,889,638.49. The various municipalities of Schenectady County for the period October 1, 2021 to March 31, 2022. We have our Commissioner of Finance, John McPhillips, here to explain this.
Thank you, Chairman. As the chairman had referenced, this is the semi-annual distribution to the municipalities of the mortgage recording tax. They're in the amount of just under about $2.9 million. For some comparison, the number of mortgages between October 1st, 2021 and March 31st, 2022 were more or less on par for the same 6-month period last year. There's a difference of about 7 mortgages, but the actual dollar value for that same time period was an increase of almost $587,000 or just over 25%. For some additional context, if you're looking in terms of the county portion of mortgage recording tax for the 2021 fiscal year, which we're in the process of closing, the total receipts were $2.7 million, which is an increase of $875,000 or 47% compared to 2020's tax receipts. So overall, mortgage recording tax was the highest I think I've ever seen it in my years in municipal government.
Any questions or comments?
Just following up on that, we could attribute that, I guess, to one of two things. First off, let me process of elimination. We did not have any really significant large payments that I'm aware of. So I'm guessing that it must be just increased property values if the sales are flat, more or less.
In terms of the number of properties, yes. I think you're seeing a couple of things. Like with the interest rates being at historic lows, there was a large number of refinancing of mortgages for people taking out either lowering their the notes that they have on their houses or maybe doing some investments in terms of new pools, hot tubs, college tuition, pick your poison on that, maximizing those low interest rates. The sort of part and parcel of that, you've also seen home prices increase, which, you know, the percentage times that home price is going to generate more revenue. I do anticipate that you're going to see more of a plateauing of that over the next several months. The Fed is scheduled to meet this week, and it's anticipated that the Fed fund rate is going to increase by at least 0.5%. So coupled with the fact that you can only refinance your mortgage so many times, that I think we probably exhausted much of that inventory. But there's also new home sales everywhere you look. There's building, a lot of construction, particularly in Schenectady County, which is good for not only mortgage recording tax, but the the property tax base as well.
Thank you. Question. Why such a disparity between like District 3 and District 4? Scotia, Glenville, and Niskuna being in the single digits, and you look at Duanesburg, Delanson, and Rotterdam in double digits. Any
There were a
thoughts?
couple of large mortgages for those particular municipalities. When you do the comparison for the 6-month period.
Any further discussion?
Move to report.
We have a
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The initiative is reported.
Chairman, I'm noting the remainder of the agenda, if I'm correct, are dual referrals that have been discussed earlier tonight, and I'm wondering if you would entertain a motion to move that calendar in its entirety, and if you were, I would make that motion.
We would. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Committee on Ways and Means is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our business for this evening.